I believe that the fires we're cast upon are the flames we shall become. I believe in a common calling where our temples pray as one. I believe in the word of wonder and a kingdom for the saved.
Good morning, Larry Pollock here with Helle Trevino. I think it's evening for you.
Yes, good evening, Larry, and everybody else out there.
Today we have an interesting subject to talk about. We're going to talk about the mental aspect of bodybuilding competition. And it's something that we talk about training, we talk about PEDs, we talk about, different things, but I don't think this subject gets talked about enough. And I think it's something that's really missing.
It's super important
in today's competitors and in society in general, actually. And as we were talking, back in the day when we started, we didn't have, the same crutches, I would say, that people use today. Like, for example, we didn't have aspartame and sucralose and all these flavored things that you could eat, this, flavored protein and diet stuff. I remember when I competed at 18 for the USA, my diet consisted of red snapper and lettuce and distilled water I think I did that for about 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just, and there was stimulants back then, but really it was just, I remember in prison when I trained for many years and I trained as hard as possible, my pre-workout was a cup of coffee. That's all I had.
Right.
And vitamins out of the commissary was just like a multivitamin that had practically nothing in it, and that was all the supplements that we could get. But people still trained hard and got big.
It's just like, where there's passion, you just make do with what you got. Also when we started, we didn't know anything else. It's just, there was protein powder when I started, but it tasted like shit. It was like chalky. It didn't really mix well. Just the flavors. I remember I bought I don't remember the brand anymore, banana flavor. And it tasted so synthetic and it was so thick and chalky. It was like, whenever I drank it over the sink because I might throw up a little. I tried not to because I didn't want to waste it, but it was like, that was just really the hardcore way, now you get so many delicious flavors, but back then supplements were pretty basic. I also didn't take stimulants. At some point, I got hold of some caffeine tabs that I used with some beta alanine, I think, but that was advanced,
Right.
But to talk about the mental aspect, it's just it doesn't matter what you have. Right now, I'm in Africa, and they don't have a lot of money here in Tanzania. And supplements is hard to come by because there's no stores here. It's you got to know somebody who gets to know somebody who maybe came from Europe who brought something. Now I'm one of those. I'm the one who came from Europe and brought something. So I got my stuff. But just to say, the people that train here, there are some really well-built guys at my gym, and they're not using supplements. They never probably did try anything other than chicken and beef and rice and vegetables and stuff, I will say they eat super healthy here because there's no supermarkets. You don't get a lot of processed foods. Everything is fresh. But hey, sometimes I think do we really need that much? Like the basics need to be in order. Train hard, get your nutrition, and then everything else is a little luxury. I mean, I will say if you're on PEDs, there are supplements that can really help you cleanse your liver and so forth. But back then, we didn't even know about that. I mean, it was just about, yeah, listening to your body and trying to gauge things, right? Because we didn't have all that much remedies. But I mean, we were hardcore. I think all is like, if you have a passion, it don't matter. You make do with what you got.
I remember when I started,
It's inside.
the supplements they had was brewer's yeast for like B vitamins, and we had desiccated liver tablets.
It sounds absolutely disgusting.
The liver tablets actually are pretty good. I still use them. And back then, people would use
Okay.
like 100 a day. Now I take like 6 of them twice a day just for the
Right.
B vitamins. But I mean, that was pretty much it. We didn't even have protein powder. There just wasn't anything.
Right.
And even PEDs, we didn't have. I mean, it was just like whatever you
That
could
was
get
the
your hands on.
basics. Yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't have a some kind of online thing where you could order a shopping list of different things. We did. It was just like whatever you could get. And like I said, my first cycle ever was Anavar. I was able to get a bottle of Anavar. I took 3 a day. There were two milligrams, so 6 milligrams a day for 30 days.
Right.
That's all I could get. What we get our hands on, and there wasn't these elaborate stacks. We didn't have peptides. We didn't have growth hormone. We didn't have any of that. We just had food and training, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. I was fortunate to be in Europe. So in Northern Europe, pets were illegal, but not in Southern Europe. So what we did was we flew down to Spain, and then we found a pharmacy, and we kind of saw like if they were willing to make a deal. And if they weren't willing to make a deal, we went to the next pharmacy, and there would be somebody who wanted to make money. Because usually when you went into the pharmacy, you could buy Test, Primo, Venstro. You could buy a lot of stuff, like Butyrol, but they would have 1 or 2 package. And we wanted like a lot. So we would find a pharmacy that would make a deal, and we would order. I still have the pictures somewhere. We would order cases of like Vinstrol. It would say like Sambong on the outside. That was like the brand back then. Case of Vinstrol, Primo, Test, Lambutal. I think that was what we could get. I don't remember if we could also get Debo, but we could get like a nice basic selection. And then we would, get all the stuff to the hotel, and we would like just take everything out of the packaging, because often there's a big package and there's 1 ampule inside. So we would take everything out, and we would make like bullet belts. So we would take like duct tape, and we would put the ampules on the duct tape, and then duct tape over it, and we'll make like lines that would fit into boxes, and put like cotton in between for protection, and we would ship it. Back then, there wasn't so much control with shipping. So we would ship all the packages home. And that was like the vacation deal was like vacation and like pet vacation.
Well, what I went with my father down to Mexico when I was, I don't know, teenager. And in the pharmacy there, they sold preloaded syringes with Decadurabolin from Organon.
Interesting.
And it was 50 milligrams per milliliter. And it came in a 1 milliliter glass syringe with an 18 gauge needle on it. And
okay.
And I remember, so I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. I got that and I brought it home, and it wasn't illegal or anything back then. And my father's like, be careful with this. And I remember trying to stick
So
that
your
thing.
dad was okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, steroids weren't illegal. It was just we thought it was just like vitamins.
Right.
There was no
A little
baseball.
extra boost.
No, we didn't. It was just like, yeah, we didn't think anything of it. But I remember getting this thing and trying to stick it into myself, and it took. It was what an 18 gauge needle is. It's like a freaking harpoon.
It's huge.
Yeah, and it was dull. So I remember trying to stick this into myself, and I think it took me like 5 times, and finally I just shoved it in there because I just wanted to do it. But I was bleeding all over the place. It was horrible.
Oh my God.
But that's it. That's what, that's all I had.
Right.
And, all for 50 milligrams of Deca.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it was a good starting dose if you never took anything before.
Well, I had taken the Anavar before, but that was like my second.
Yeah, right. The second one.
But yeah, we didn't have much. It was just like that. Later, I got connections with European. We could get a few more things, but it wasn't like, okay, go online and just, order whatever you want and this and that. And there was no UGLs. Everything was out of a pharmacy. I did have fast and diet pills that somebody gave me. I think they must have come out of a doctor's office. I remember for that contest.
Ephedrine or something?
No, it was called fast. It was some kind of amphetamine, I think.
Ooh, okay.
And I remember I took that for that contest. And like I said, I read, first of all, I was training at a world gym, and I was going to my first national competition, and everybody I trained with were pros. And I was like, there's no way I can go there and like not do well, because I had it in my head that, I'm representing world gym and I can't not do well. So I just literally ate red snapper, lettuce, and distilled water for 6 weeks. I didn't know any better. I was just starving myself to death. And I was doing cardio. Every morning I got up and rode my Tenturi bicycle for like, I don't know how long, half hour. And then I would drive out to World Gym, train, drive back to the San Fernando Valley, which was like an hour drive each way, at least an hour. Go to the tanning bed place. And then after that, I couldn't sleep. So I would go to a 24-hour Ralph's all the way out in Pasadena. I must have been out of my mind. Pasadena was another hour drive. And I'd go to the diet section of the store, and I'd walk around and look at the diet food for like an hour, just reading the ingredients. And then I would end up buying a bottle of distilled water and leave. I did that every night. The people at the store must have thought I was crazy.
But also people, they don't understand, like if you haven't really tried to diet to that point, you don't understand how satisfying it can be to look at food. I had now we're talking about firsts. My first competition was for the Danish nationals, and I was always like power walking outside. Every morning, every night, I would like go power walking. And in the morning, I had like a set route that when I was finishing my 1 hour route, I was passing by a bakery, and they had like just this big display window, and it just looked so good. And sometimes I would go inside, not every time, but sometimes I needed just to go inside and just sniff it, And after a while, the workers there, they knew me because I came in and I never bought anything. So, and I was like, had to explain them that, I have this big competition, and, I'll have like people coming afterwards, and we're going to like celebrate, and I'm going to come here and buy something for sure. But right now I can't buy something. I had to explain it because, I came there like almost every day, and they were like, "Oh, hello, how are you? How can I help you?" And I'm like, no, I'm just watching. But it
Yeah,
was so satisfying.
somehow when I walked around that supermarket for an hour reading the ingredients, even though I didn't buy anything and eat any of it, I felt, I don't know, something
Some
better.
kind of satisfaction.
Some kind of satisfaction. Like after I ate, I wasn't. I mean, after I walked through there, I felt like I don't know, felt better mentally that I just did
Mhm.
that, even though I didn't eat any of it.
I think it's more like just the thought of it, like when you can't eat, you can't buy it. I mean, but you can look at it, and you can like, maybe you'll have some thoughts in your head. Like I often had thoughts in my head what I was going to buy after, so it'd be like that kind of like looking forward to buying it after. And then another component was like, I felt like, I kind of tricked myself in my head and said, like, but you already had that. Like, say if it was something I really liked, like a chocolate
Right.
cake or something. And I'd be like, but you don't need to taste it because you know how it tastes like. And I would imagine the taste in my head. And I'm like, why you have to have it in your mouth and chew on it? Like when you have the memory in your head. And I would like trick me and say, you already had this cake. You already know how it tastes like. This is how it is. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, it's also not like, the day will come. I always said that, like as hungry I was or as much cravings as I had, I said, it's not the end of your, like, it's not like rest of your life. This, you
Right.
committed to a time period, and that will also finish. And then you can have whatever you want. But it's still satisfying to kind of imagine what you want or imagine how it might taste like.
I remember one competition I did in the early 2000s, and I had this routine every night. I would, before bed, I would take a Power Crunch bar and I would take just a little piece of it, like literally like a square inch of it.
Right.
And I would chew on that thing for as long as I could, slowly, and just like put it in my mouth and just like chew on it.
We just spit it out.
No, I would, it was just like literally this piece of the Power Crunch bar. And I would
Okay.
chew on
Yeah,
it
real
for
small.
like 10
Yeah,
minutes
yeah,
just to
yeah,
taste it.
yeah,
And then I'd go to sleep. And that was my
yeah.
cheat thing.
Right. Yeah.
But that's all I don't even know why I did that, but somehow doing
I
that,
think
like,
it's just you need something, I've had all my diets, I had something I needed. Like I've done like either the sniffing thing, like sniff stuff, or I also have chewed stuff and spit it out. Uh, or I had like here in the modern days, these like seaweed, the seaweed came out where it's like, it's not really those seaweed, the packets with the thin seaweed leaves. There's like not many calories in there. It was like just having like a few pieces of that seaweed was kind of like enough to be like, and then you can say to yourself, well, you already had something. If you want something else, you're hungry, well, you can eat your food and you already had the seaweed. So it's like, that was your snack. You had it. It's like, there's something to that.
but at the end of
Like
the
you, with
day, I
your
mean,
bar, you are kind of like, oh, you treated yourself, like that was like enough
right.
satisfaction for the whole day and the next day.
But at the end of the day, the main thing was like, I was so focused on trying to win my competitions that the idea of cheating or anything, it just like, it wasn't even an option. It didn't, there was no way I was going to do something like that
Yeah.
because I was so focused on just, trying to be the best that I could be. It
Yeah.
it wasn't really something that once I had started a diet, well, I've never really been a food person. In other words, even
Right.
like, I think like growing up, my mother always cooked like homemade cooking, and we didn't have sweets in the house.
Right.
Like one on a special occasion on a holiday, she would get a box of See's candy, and we're each allowed to have one piece, and that was it. So I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
develop like a sweet tooth. I didn't have that
Right.
craving for that. But I
Right.
do remember when I was a teenager, I think I was about 13 years old, and I finally was had money and I could go to a store and buy stuff. And I remember I would go to like a 7-Eleven. I'd buy this, I don't know what it was called. It was like a sugar powder with a stick in it that was also made of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And it was some kind of candy. It was just straight sugar. And I remember getting that thing, and I was like, because I wasn't allowed to have candy growing up. So I
Right.
got this thing. I was able to buy it from the 7-Eleven or whatever it was. And I remember eating it and thinking, like, this is the greatest thing. But I only did it for a few times, and then I didn't even really want it anymore.
Right.
It
It
was just
might
like,
have just been, yeah, it might have just been because you weren't allowed growing
yeah,
up,
because I
and
wasn't allowed. It was like, okay, now I'm getting this
now I can
sugar.
do it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but then after I did it for a few times, I'm like, I don't really want it anymore.
yeah.
So
Uh,
that really wasn't a thing. But I remember going out to eat when I was a teenage bodybuilder with my father, and I was already like being on a strict diet, and he was telling me like eating is one of the joys of life or something like this, and I'm like, no, it's just fuel. I was
right,
already in that mindset. It's just fuel. I don't really care about um, the tasting or any of that,
right.
because I was so focused on just trying to be the best bodybuilder that I could be that I didn't really care about that sort of a thing.
But
Um,
that's that kind of like hardcore mentality. I mean, I would say like I've gone through phases. Like when I started bodybuilding, I was also like exactly the same. Whether I had to like puke from the protein powder, or whatever, I didn't care. I would cook my turkey like bland. I would boil it in water. I don't know why I boiled it a bit in water, but I did. So I boiled it in water, and it was like so dry and no seasoning, no nothing. So most of the times it was just like rice with a couple of like rice or pasta with a couple of canned tuna on top because that was cheap, and then some vegetables from the freezer. Just some peas and beans or something, and just throw it all in there, or the turkey. That was, yeah, turkey or chicken. But it was also like I ate super bland until like I don't know. At some point, I was I was focused on where I said to myself, it's important that I like my food. I think when you do it for so long, I mean, I don't know if it was different for you, but when you do something, I mean, I started competing when I was 22 and started training when I was 15. So we're talking about I've been in this industry like for 35 years.
mhm.
So when you do things for so long, at some point I was like, I want to enjoy my food. It could have been it started in the off season. I'm like, you know what? I can still diet, and I can make like a nice salad. I can still make a nice sauce with a soy sauce or something. Like we found out what like salt wasn't dangerous. Back then, oh, salt was terrible. Nobody ate salt.
Right.
Then we found out salt is actually very good for your electrolytes and keeping the muscle full and all this. So that also helped a lot with flavor. Like salt gives flavor to anything. You can use the teriyaki, the soy sauce, oyster sauce, different. So I developed more into like doing more with my food, still like, of course, diet food and all that. And then also, as you mentioned, more products came actually, like you could put a little vanilla flavoring in your oats. You could put like some stevia or
Right.
sweetener. And also the protein powder was like edible. So you could also mix that into your oats or cream of rice or whatever. But
Mhm.
I mean, that was something like that developed into this hardcore, like it don't has to taste good. It just has to be fuel function. I totally had that period also. And then it kind of like went over to at some point I said, I want my food to be enjoyable. I'm still dieting. I can still eat a good red steak, you know, and have a nice salad and enjoy my food. And I'll say the whole I don't know if it was like the years in the sport or it was because I started making my food delicious, but the whole sniffing thing and all that went away, you know, having to.
Mhm.
I've also walked around the supermarket 2 o'clock at night looking at food. I've sniffed like to cakes and bread and stuff, you know, all of that actually kind of went away after I made my food more delicious. I don't know if, like I said, is the progression of the years in the sport. I mean, obviously, I always say like you're not born with discipline. You know, it's like it's nice if you already have learned it from child that your parents instilled discipline in you. That's going to make it easier. But discipline can be taught. It can be learned. So the more you're going to diet, the more preps you're going to go through, the better you're going to be at it.
Well, my first coach was a Mr. Universe named Mike Sable, and he was like, "You can't have salt." That was his thing. We had to eat. He had me eating. Had to use paper plates and plastic utensils, and drink only distilled water. With
I'm like even like, why distilled water? Like, what did the mineral do?
because, well, first of all, we know now that that's really not a good idea because there's no minerals. You need minerals, and the no salt thing is also not a good idea. But that's what people did back then.
Right.
And if anybody doesn't understand, when you don't take in salt, you have a hormone called aldosterone, which regulates your sodium in your body. So if you don't eat salt, basically your aldosterone hormone goes up, and then any salt that you do take, your body holds on to it for dear life because it's starving for salt because you need it to pump your blood and for everything else, muscle contractions and everything. Your heart won't work without sodium. And but anyway, so your aldosterone goes up. Then the problem with that is if you do zero salt and then you take in any amount of salt, you will hold a ton of water because your body is starving for that. Now, what we've learned is you can take as much salt as you want, and your aldosterone will be low, and you'll just piss it out. So salt is actually really good. Now, I eat like tons of salt. I actually put salt in my water because it keeps me hydrated. So that was just a bad idea, but that's how strict we were. That we would, have to eat on with paper plates and plastic utensils. Um, and he was shredded. Um, so I mean, I won't say it didn't work. We know like there's better ways. But
You were
he was,
probably shredded, but maybe not so full. I would imagine if you didn't have any salt.
yeah, he was a bit on the flat side, but back then people weren't as full as they are today either.
That's true, though. That's true, though.
Yeah.
Because I also remember my first few shows. I was like also really on the flat side, like shredded but flat.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's, you know, the diet he put me on. There was no way I was going to cheat on that thing because, again, my goal was more important. And you sent me an interesting clip of Chris Aceto talking about contest prep, and I want to play that.
That is the coolest clip. That has motivated me so many times. And actually, I saw this clip and I thought to myself, he needs to be my coach. So after that clip, I actually hired Chris Aceto to be my coach. Also, I knew he coached Laura Craval, was his ex-wife. So I knew he had experience with women, but actually at the time, he didn't work with women. And I had met him at the Chicago Pro where I was second. And he came up to me and said, he really liked my conditioning, that, I was really like shredded. So I thought maybe there's a chance, because he said something nice. He was impressed with my physique. And, I was like, I don't know. Everybody told me, like, don't ask him. Like, he doesn't work with women. And I was like, well, why not? Let's see the clip.
I'm going to play this little clip real quick.
Yeah.
I'll turn on the volume so people can hear it.
Mentality to be the best.
I think you got to go
what's
back.
in a person until the body fat comes down.
What's on there?
The dragon, and the body fat comes down, and they're tired. And you know what? You have to have at that point the mental either capacity or mental incapacity. I mean, you've got to be retarded enough just to be able to say, I don't care. I really don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care if I pass out on this treadmill, and I don't care if I'm doing squats on low carbs. If I blow out both knees and get hurt and, have to end my career now, you have to have that mentality to be the best. You don't know what's in a person until the body fat comes down, the dragon, and the body fat comes down, and they're tired. And you know what? You have to have at that point the mental either capacity or mental
incapacity.
You got to be retarded enough just to be able to say, I don't care. I really don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care if I pass out on this treadmill, and I don't care if I'm doing squats on low carbs. If I blow out both knees and get hurt and, have to end my career now, you have to have that mentality to be the best.
I think it's cool where he says, like, you have to have either the mental capacity or incapacity. I mean, it depends on how you look at it, right? Because, like, the capacity of push yourself, like, just so far. I mean, I always say, like, in prep, there are gears, right? It's like, kind of like you go to this mental threshold, or this, like, you think, okay, this is really like the maximum pain now, and then you discover, I can push more. Like, as the diet progresses, body fat comes down, you feel more and more like crap, but you still got to train, you still got to do your cardio, and you kind of like, you keep going up in a higher mental gear where you can endure it, you can become friend with that pain, you can become one with that pain, and it's okay. You've accepted where you are, and you're embracing it, and you keep pushing. And that's like, you could say it's a capacity, like how much capacity do you have to tolerate pain? But you can also say maybe it's a mental incapacity, because every, like, sane and normal person would have said stop and said, I'm going to listen to my body now. I'm going to not go so hard. You know what I mean?
When I listened to that clip, it reminded me of something. When I was ever training for a competition, I had this thing in my head that all I was focused on was my prep and that show. And I didn't think anything past the show. In other words, like, whatever happened after the show, that just, it didn't matter. I was only cared about, like, I was just focused on being my best at that show on that day. And I didn't care. Like, if I spent all my money and I would be broke the next day after the show, I would do it, because I would do whatever I had to do to be at. That's all I focused on. Like, my head was not thinking about after the show what I'm going to eat or anything like that. It was just totally focused on the show. And I remember when I was getting ready for that USA's, I was in high school at the time. I was 18, and like I said, I was eating the the red snapper and the distilled water. And I had just enough energy to make it through the workout and do the cardio. And I remember I walked into World Gym one day and I didn't really talk to people at that time because it took energy to talk. And I was walking into the gym and probably a little delirious, and I bumped my head on one of those cable bars that was hanging from a cable push down machine or a lat pull down.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Gold was standing behind the desk and he goes, "Are you right, kid?" And I just looked at him and went, I didn't even say anything. Because it was too much energy to talk. I just looked at him and like I went like this and I just kept going.
Right.
And I actually skipped 2 weeks of school. I just ditched school for those last 2 weeks because I just didn't have the energy to do anything. It was just all I had to get through the workouts and the cardio. But I was so focused on just having to win that show. And then after I won, then at this, my father told the school that, that I won, and they like gave me a pass for missing 2 weeks of school because I actually won. But
okay. Well, good you won then.
Yeah.
Because if you were second, maybe they wouldn't have given you a pass.
Yeah. So
I mean, I can relate to that. Like, I mean, this kind of tired is like, I mean, I've many times walked into the gym and just wished, I hope nobody will talk to me today. Just cap on, headphones on, keep the head down, avoid the talkers. Every gym has the talkers. Mm-hmm. And you got to like not even make eye contact because they're coming over. So, I mean, I've been too tired to watch a movie even. Like, I couldn't figure out what was happening. It was just too much going on that I was like, I just wanted peace.
But that was a mentality back then. It was like, those of us that competed, it was like whatever you had to do, you would do.
Right.
It was whatever it takes,
But don't you think it's the same today that people there is still like, I mean, whether you have more to do with or less to do with, whether you have the supplements or you have better equipment, or don't you think the mentality is the same? Like, if we're talking about like competitors that want to go somewhere, like, I mean, back then there was also people that were not serious, like there's right. It's like, why are you, I always say, what's your why? Tell me what you want to sacrifice and I can tell you how far you're going to get. Like, are you just want to stand on stage to look good? Do you want to impress somebody? Do you want to be the best? Do you want to be the greatest? Do you just want to compete just to be a part of it? Like, I mean, people have so many like different incentives for competing.
Well, I thought about that and how things have changed from back then to now. And here's what I see. Back then, the only people that got into bodybuilding back then were, people that were a little bit nuts and really wanted to be a competitive bodybuilder because it wasn't fashionable at that time.
No, it wasn't.
To do bodybuilding. I remember when I was a kid, I was starting bodybuilding. One of my father's friends, he was a butcher, and he said to me, "You don't want to be a meathead. Don't become a meathead." And I was like, I don't care what this guy says. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to do this. But
right.
The only people that went to the gym were like, at least the gyms I trained out, were like the hardcore people. And I think what's changed now is it's become more mainstream and you have just more people involved. So we still have those hardcore people. They're still there that are, want to be champions and do whatever. But we have all these other people that they're in it for different reasons. And what I noticed, I went to the LA Fit Expo this last weekend
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was coming up in bodybuilding, we only had bodybuilding. There wasn't social media. There wasn't all these different physique and classic physique and wellness and categories. It was just men's and women's bodybuilding. That was it. And the people I looked up to were the championship bodybuilders. So that's who I wanted to be like. So I looked up to people like Mike Menser, Tom Platz, Bertil Fox, the competitors that were competing in the Olympia, Lee Haney, Greg Gasperi, those people. When I went to the Fit Expo, the longest lines, and this was like by far, okay, the first longest line was Sam Sulek.
Mm-hmm.
He had a line halfway around the building. There was must have
Wow.
been, I don't know, 1,000 teenagers in line waiting to see Sam Sulek. And the next was the Trent twins. And then, so they both had lines going around the building. And I'm not knocking on either one of them. I think they're great, social influencers. But, when Sam started, he'd post his stuff and he would drink like a gallon of chocolate milk.
Yeah, I know. And eat
know,
like cereal and junk food.
Yeah, eating cereal and just shit. And he's super popular. And I mean, when I was there, you had just this weekend, I remember going to the booth and there was Hunter Labrada and Joe Palacio. If you guys, I'm sure you know who they are, like they're top competitors.
Yeah.
And Joe's training partner, who was massive. They were at the gas booth, and one of my guys, he's getting ready for USA's. He really wanted to meet them because he really likes these. He looks up to these guys.
Hunter is super nice. Super nice.
Yeah. So we went up to the gas booth. There was literally no line. No one was waiting to see them. We just walked right up and took pictures and everything. They were all in line for Sam Sulek and the Trent twins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's worth, the young people today, the whole thing has changed as to what I don't think they look at the Olympia competitors and, be like, I want to be like that. And I think the reason they relate to those guys is it's more
social media.
Well, they look at them and they're like, well, they're young like me. And, Sam is like a little bit introverted. So maybe he's a little bit like me. Someone said they just don't advertise themselves. That's not really true. I mean, Joe Palacio is a kind of a new pro and he's on podcasts and everything. So I don't think it's that.
No, I don't think it's that either. I think you're right. Like, just relatable. And then, I mean, social media has taken such a big part of our lives. I mean, even more than I would like to. Like, I mean, who's not on social media in some form every day? Really, not even once a week or twice a week, but pretty much everyone I know, they're on social media every day to some extent.
Right.
And I think also, I mean, there are so many influencers that get famous just for their content, whereas, back in the day, like, you'd have to compete and have medals to be famous or recognized or,
right.
Somebody people knew, to get sponsored. I remember when I started out competing, I so wanted to win the Danish nationals because I knew that those that won there, they got a sponsorship with Twin Lab. And, like, it was always like, oh, if I get to that level, then I get sponsored there, or I can get these opportunities. Today is like, companies, they almost don't give a shit what you achieved. They want to, like, I've applied for a few sponsorships here and there. And on the website, they will say, like, what's your social media handles, blah, blah, blah. You have to, you know, if you don't have a good following, you can forget about it. And, you know, it's kind of sad. I mean, I get it. Companies want to be marketed, you know, they want to get their product out, but still, like, it's so hard. You know, I've been in this position where, you know, competing every year and really like putting my all into it. And then you also have to sit and post every day. You know, it's just extra work because you got to market yourself, because if you don't market yourself, nobody will know who you are. You won't get sponsorships. You won't get any help in any way. You know, it's like, even for, I mean, for women, it's even worse, you know, on the pro scene, that there's not much to win. You know, you win a pro qualifier, you get $1,000. Like, at least if you win as a man, like some of the shittier qualifiers is $30,000. And if you get, like, say, like a Dubai pro, it's like $500,000. You get it on a classic, it's $750,000. You get Olympia, get, you know, $600,000. So for me, it was like really important. Like, I couldn't win much, you know, to try and get some sponsors, at least, like, if I could have my suit paid for, have like my hair and makeup, have my tan, have my supplements, stuff like that. So it's just evolved into this, like, social media is a marketing machine. And that's why, I mean, Sam Sulek was famous before he even set a foot on the stage.
Right. No, he was super popular before he ever competed.
It's just a lot of, I would say it's a lot of extra work that you now have to do with marketing yourself. Like, back in the day, you just trained. Right.
Well, I think, like Sam,
And
he
also
would just,
there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure with that also. Like, as a coach, I have a lot of athletes that are often intimidated with what they see on social media. I know, I saw this person, I saw that person, they're in better shape than me, or they're bigger than me, or, you know, like, it's tough these days with all that exposure to each other. And then you can't always know if it's real either. It could be a filter, it could be edited.
right. Well, I think though, but even outside of bodybuilding, I think just in general, um, people are just softer than they were back then. I think you still have a handful of, like, more motivated people that are willing to, you know, want to be hardcore a little bit, but it's just not the same. I don't even see pros training to the level like we did back in the day. The intensity is just not there, you know. And now, instead of, they just make excuses for not having the intensity by saying, well, you don't really need to train to failure. You can do reps in reserve. These, to me, it's just excuses for not wanting to work hard. But I can say, you know, I run a hardcore bodybuilding gym, and there's a handful of kids there that, you know, want to train hard, but for the most part, most people do not. You know, and there's just a lot more people involved, but they don't have any aspirations of competing or you know, doing that stuff.
Do you think it's something like either you have it or you don't?
You know, I will say this. There is something genetic in people that there is something like that. But I think it's also partially the way you're raised.
Yeah.
You know, my father was a World War II veteran, and he was big into sports. And, you know, he put us, from little kids, we were in like karate class and soccer and everything, from doing sports from as soon as we were old enough to walk, pretty much.
Right.
So he kind of instilled that in us, and he was a professional handball player. So we looked up to him. even though he wasn't a bodybuilder, but he lifted some weights. He didn't really know a lot about it. But we were always playing sports growing up. And, kids today, they don't even do PE class.
I'll say that's also like a shift in society because, you see every kid now, what are they doing? They're playing computer games, right?
Right.
Like when I was a kid, everybody was outside on the street playing. We were playing football or handball or catch ball or climbing trees and rolling roller skates or whatever. We were always outside. Every evening, all the kids were on the street playing. You don't see that anymore. You go to any type of like residential area at night and it's like totally quiet. Nobody's out. Or even daytime or whatever, like after school time. There's nobody there. I think it's also like a shift, like because we have this like computer age right now. But it's interesting you mentioned your upbringing because mine were similar. My dad was in the military. He served for the Queen, and he stayed even after he stopped in the military. So if you are serving the Queen, you're called a garter. That's the position. So there was a garter organization that he became like the chairman for that, and was like basically that until he got like really old. But he was this military, like we had Sunday room inspections, I wasn't allowed to really do anything like party and stuff. The only thing I was allowed was sports, and it didn't matter what sports I was allowed to do it. When I was 3 years old, they put me in gymnastic class, which I did 10 years. I got a horse in my like confirmation. Like when you're a Christian, you get like confirmation when you're like 12, 13. They gave me a horse. I started, like I already was horse riding for 3 years at that point. Then I started competitive horse riding. I was a swimming champion in high school, and I did so many sports because that was basically what was allowed. Anything else was not allowed. So I also, I got that in with my dad. He always say, when you say A, you must say B, he said so many times when we sat at the dinner table, he would say, respect, moral, and ethics. Repeat that after me. And we kids, we had to repeat it because that was the pillars of society. I mean, in his idea, it should be, it's not always, but respect, moral, and ethics. That was what was like, should be our foundation. So, I can thank my dad for so much. Like, I was never allowed to just stop something. If I say, oh, I want to join the Girl Scouts, and then after 2 times there, I said, oh, I don't want to do it. It's like, no, now you committed to it. Now you give it a chance. Now you go, no matter what it was. Like now even if you put food on your table, you're going to eat it. You were the one who put it on the table. So you eat up, that's it. I didn't put it there. Mom didn't you put it there. It was like there was rules, it wasn't like this soft type of upbringing. But it served me well because, I carried that discipline with me like through life as an adult.
Well, even when I was in junior high school, I had a PE teacher named Mr. Vineyard. And I think he didn't like me very much because maybe I was a little rebellious. Maybe I talked back. I don't remember. But I was already bodybuilding. And I think he just, one time he told me to put my hands behind one hand behind here and one hand here and touch my hands together. And he showed us how you should be able to touch your hands together behind your back, like one over the shoulder and one behind. And I couldn't do it because literally my lat was in the way of my tricep.
I think we all kind of know that problem.
Right. And he told me I wasn't flexible enough and that I was too muscle bound. So anyways, but everybody played sports, and we had to do pull-ups, and like there was a requirement, like we had to do a certain amount of pull-ups and push-ups. But that guy would make me run laps. Like while everybody was playing sports, he made me run laps. Like I just remember having to run laps as some kind of punishment for whatever. I don't remember what I did.
For being too muscular.
Yeah, I would. He like I would just run like 3 miles and continuously around the thing while people were playing sports. I actually went. My father had to go meet with me because I don't know. He was upset with me for some kind of reason. I don't remember what. But yeah, I mean, he just made me run those laps. And I have one of my training clients who's a athletic director at a school. And the kids, first of all, breakfast is now mandatory. Do you know what they serve for breakfast? Coffee cake.
What?
Most of the coffee cake. Coffee cake for breakfast.
That's not really breakfast. Isn't that like more like a snack?
Well, that's what they serve for breakfast is coffee cake. And sometimes they serve milk and yogurt with it. And he said the kids will not drink the milk or eat the yogurt. They just eat the coffee cake. And these kids, they cannot do a single push-up if their life depended on it. They're all obese. And they actually I just saw a thing that came out. I think it was Kennedy was talking about the food directions that were given out by the government. And for whatever reason, back in the day, they promoted high carbs and low protein. And now you have an obesity epidemic and all this diabetes and all this stuff. And they said it's because of the diet that was the government put out there. And they admit now that the diet that they put out there was wrong, and people should be eating a high protein, low carb diet. And they're now changing the whole food pyramid thing that was promoted for so many years. And the reason that was promoted was because carbs are cheap, and the people that make the carbs, the cereal and the junk and everything, wanted to sell that. So they created this narrative that you need more carbs and less protein.
Right.
Which was just making people, and that's why you have these obese people and people are sick. Right. And but we've known.
I would say people also have a responsibility themselves to educate themselves about nutrition. Like just as if like you want to buy an Apple Watch. If you don't like put yourself into like how it's working, you're not gonna like operate it right or get the right use of it. Or like, I mean, nutrition. I can't see why people they can't see how essential it is. It's like literally like what we're feeding our body. Like, food can turn into illness, or it can turn into like health. And I don't understand why they don't educate themselves. There's so much information. I mean, we're talking back in the day, we didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. My dad had like the big like lexicon shelf from A to Z, where you could look up in a book if there was something you wanted to know. Now, you can ask ChatGPT to make you a healthy diet of the foods that you like, like you can read articles about nutrition. And I don't get it. There's such a fat epidemic, especially in the States right now. I mean, there are also other countries, but it's with the processed food there in the States and the food quality being so poor. It's like, I mean, even like, I've been in Europe a lot lately in the last 4 years. There's like so many things you can't get there that you can get in America. Why? Because it's forbidden. like all the uh, many of the preservatives and the chemicals, the food flavorings, the food colorings, they're all forbidden because they're poisonous. But in the States, I mean, they're making a profit, so let's not touch that. But it's
Well,
just
there's
so bad.
a couple of things with that. First of all, if someone is raised from a little kid eating shit, junk food,
Mhm.
they literally become addicted to that. They
Yeah,
get a sugar addiction. It's like almost like a cocaine addiction. And
I
they're
agree.
stuck on that junk food.
Yeah.
And I actually, in my gym, we offer training and nutrition. And I can tell you that I've done thousands of nutrition plans, and most people have no idea anything about nutrition. And when I say anything, they don't understand like what carb, protein, and fat is. They don't understand calories, just the basic stuff. They have no clue
Right.
at all. And as part of the nutrition, I have people get DEXA scans to measure their body fat percentage. Before I do a nutrition program, I send them to get a DEXA scan because it gives us their lean body mass, their body fat percentage, their RMR, and all that. And I use that as part of the formula of putting together the nutrition program. Most people that are way overweight and they have no idea that they're even overweight. They don't even know they're 30% body fat or more,
Right.
and they don't even realize it. They think that's normal. And I remember this is just recently. A kid came in. He said he wants to be a competitive bodybuilder. He signed up, and he brought his father. And his father's probably he's 58 years old. And he told me, back in the day, he used to bodybuild, 40 years ago, but he stopped. And do I think he could get back into it? And do you think he could, build muscle again and whatever? And I said, yeah, I mean, you can still improve, and I'm sure you can. So we have what's called an intro to training, where they get a free training session. And I usually have trainers do my intros. I don't do it myself. But because I'm training some new trainers, I started doing some intros just for them to watch. So I was doing the intro with the kid and the father. They wanted to do it together. And like he refused to do certain exercises. Like I tried to get him to do a deadlift with just like not heavy weight, just with barely any weight. I have these like rubber bumper plates that weigh 22 pounds.
Why'd he refuse though?
He wouldn't do it because he said, no, my knees hurt. So halfway through the intro, like I got him to do some squats and I got him to do a bench press. But he wouldn't do the deadlift. Anyways, end of the day, they didn't end up getting training, but I see them in the gym. They come in at night, and I just happened to be training the other night, and the guy is there, the father, and the kid's training over by himself. And he says to me, he just starts talking to me in the middle of my training, and he says, my doctor told me that I'm in better shape than the 20-year-olds. I'm like, well, that's not saying very much because the 20-year-olds are in really bad shape because they all eat. I said, do you know why they're in bad shape? He said, why? I said, because they eat junk. I said, they're mostly overweight and they're poor health. And he said, well, I eat really healthy. And I said, really, what do you eat? And he said, well, like before I came to the gym, I had broccoli, cheese, rice with a Chick-fil-A. I said, what is a Chick-fil-A? He said, it's a chicken thigh that's filleted. And I'm like, okay. And I said, do you think that's healthy? And he said, yeah. I said, well, the cheese is mostly fat. He goes, no, it's protein. I said, not really, actually. But anyways.
There's protein, but there's more fat than protein.
Right. And then he said, after we work out, we go through the drive-through. My son gets a double cheeseburger and fries, and I get just the fries. And I said, so
What?
after you work out, yeah, he said, I only
I'd
get
be
the,
like, if he got a lettuce wrap, that would be better with a hamburger.
nope, he just gets just the fries. And I said, so you don't eat any, you just eat the fries. You don't eat any protein after your training session. And he goes, no, I don't want to eat too heavy before late at night before I go to sleep. I'm like, well, you're
But
kind of just
fats are heavy.
I'm just saying this is what he said. And I said, well,
Yeah,
do you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I said,
I'm
do you
just
really
like,
think that's healthy? And he said, yeah, I do. And
I'm just like, what?
yeah, so his post-workout meals is a fries.
Okay.
And both of them are overweight. And I just, I assumed maybe they're overweight because maybe, who knows, he has a slow metabolism or whatever, but no, but they eat just junk.
It's
and that,
sad that you're overweight though, and you think you're in good shape because you see other people around that are fatter than you.
so anyways, he kept trying to go on. And honestly, I was I'm like, I can't have this conversation right now. I'm in the middle of training.
Yeah.
And this guy's starting to piss me off. I want to tell him you're an idiot, but I can't say that. Well, I could say it, but I just wasn't going to. And so I just turned around and I started doing my next set. And I just like wasn't going to engage in conversation with him after that because it was pointless. It was like he has his mind made up. He's going to do what he wants to do. He doesn't want help. He it is what it is.
He thinks he knows better.
He thinks he knows better. But you're right. There's all these resources people have to learn, but they don't really want to.
The worst thing really is, like you touched on it before, when I see parents who are fat with their fat kids, and you see like a 3-year-old looking like a little sumo wrestler, and their 10-year-old is like so fat that the high tops, he can't tie the shoelaces because the ankles are so fat. Like, that's when I feel bad. I feel angry. I'm like, as a parent, you have a responsibility to teach your kids about everything. They only have you. You are their idol. You are the role model. You need to teach them not just about traffic, not walking over when it's red. You have to teach them about nutrition. Nutrition is like one of the foundations. It's like, are you going to be healthy? Are you going to be sick? That's basically simplified what nutrition is. And that you can just, I understand they're fat, but I just feel like if you commit to being a parent and you're putting a child into this world, you need to try and be a better person for your child. Like, even if it just really bothers me. Like, because the kids, they don't have a flying chance. Like you said, they're brought up like that. They're addicted to sugar already before they're a couple of years old. Like I see sometimes these Instagram stuff that they're feeding their babies ice cream. Why does this baby need ice cream? It's a baby. I'm just like, man, you take your kids, like, they're barely old enough to chew, and you take them to McDonald's for a Happy Meal. Like, really? Like, I get so wound up about it.
So let's switch gears a little bit. So we know we have these people, the general population, they don't know much about nutrition. They don't care to know. But now there are some people, they want to do well, and they want to, compete. They want to do better, but they don't know how. And the mentality has changed. And what I mean by that is, back in our day, it was like, if it's hard, you just suck it up and deal with it. you do what you have to do. And that wasn't just bodybuilding, that was life. It's hard, you suck it up, you deal with it, you do what you have to do, because life's not easy. Now we have this new sports psychology where you need to accept all of these what I want to say, it's like, I'll just give you an example. This is probably, I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to piss somebody off. Derek Lunsford came out and talked about his panic attack. And that, he had this panic attack at the Olympia, and he was stressed out, and he almost couldn't make it to the stage and whatever. I can't, for the life of me, I wouldn't, even if it happened, I would never talk about it. I would never admit that happened to me. I would be so embarrassed to say that, I mentally broke down during the contest and I couldn't go function. But now it's like, oh, well, we have these issues, and, be open about it, talk about it. And, it's okay to have all these problems. And it's like, it's okay to have, whatever things you got going on, which is like mental weakness in my head. But that's what's being promoted now. It's like, it's sports psychology. It's like, yeah, you have all these mental issues, and you don't have to suppress things, and you don't have to suck it up. You just, do therapy. These kind of things. And I remember when I was a kid, my parents got divorced, and my mom took me to therapy, and I was like, what the fuck? Why am I here talking to this lady? Like, I didn't understand why I was in it. My father was kind of hardcore, and I was like, what am I doing in this therapy session? It just didn't, I don't think it helped me. It didn't do anything for me. And I guess it helped some people, but now it's like everybody's in therapy. Everybody's got a psychologist to talk to. And it's just a different mentality. I mean, when we came up, it was like, okay, you're going to diet, you're going to be hungry, you're going to have to work, whatever things go on in life, you're just going to have to deal with it. And today it's like, oh, well, if don't get bullied in school. I'll be honest with you, I grew up, I was bullied from a little kid, and I had to learn to fight. It was just either that or get your ass kicked, because there was no choice. I was going to fight with the neighbor kids who were bigger and older than me, and either I learned how to defend myself or I was going to get my ass kicked. Today, people get bullied on the internet. There's not a physical fight, and they're in therapy.
Yeah.
It's just a different everything.
I see good and bad things. Like, I mean, I guess it's the good old, like, it can be too much of the same thing, too much of one thing. Like, there has to be some type of balance. I don't think, like, to be tough, you don't need to be a not man, that you bottle everything up and you don't talk to anybody and you're just like bitter and angry. I think just back in the day, we had good friends to talk to if we needed to, get advice, or maybe your dad or a friend or something, or your mom, but I think, you got to have some type of resilience, like, you can't take everything so fucking personal. Like, I also get like a lot of shit comments on my Instagram, especially being a woman with muscles. It with your ex-girlfriend, You know, oh, are you a man? Are you a trans? You know, like, are you
Mhm.
changing genders? Or all the shit we heard 10,000 times before. And I'm like, even, you know, is it any of my friends who's saying that? No. Is it somebody I don't know under a profile with no pictures and 3 followers? Usually it's like that. And you cannot even tag them or mention them because they have that turned off. It's just little like fucker bullies, you know? I'm just like, delete and block, you know?
Right.
Like, I don't get like people get so wound up they need therapy just because somebody said something online. Like, who cares? Who are these people? You don't know them, you know? Like, if they want to be like that, trust me, they're going to get their karma in life. Like, I'm a big believer in energy. If you send like positive energy out, like good energy to people, you're going to receive that back. If you sit there and you have some shit to say about everybody and you're bitter and you're just like have bad energy, you're going to get bad energy back in your ass. So I'm even like, you know, I don't care because they're going to get theirs. That's how I believe. But with the whole like psychology thing, I mean, I think it's good like if people like they don't have anyone to talk to, like, I mean, I feel like in this world like people are getting lonelier and lonelier because, you know, everybody's sitting behind their screens. You see sometimes people, they go out for dinner, 4 or 5 friends, they're all sitting on their phones, you know,
Mhm.
like it's like I said with the kids, they're not out on the street playing. They're sitting at home playing a computer game. Maybe they're playing with a friend or against the computer or whatever. But I feel like we had a bigger network before. Like, we had friends, we had people we saw and we spent time with. Where now I get that people get lonely and they don't maybe have somebody to talk to. Like, now you say you didn't need to talk so much, but some people have they need to like air it out, you know.
Mhm.
I think it's fine, you know, whatever it is you need. Like, people have different needs, but I also think it, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, it can get too much of one thing. Like, oh, now we gotta talk about all our problems and we gotta, you know, and like I said, I'm a big believer in energy, so I'm often also like, if there's something like bad, I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to give it energy. I don't want to give it life. I don't want to
Right.
put that bad out there because the more you're going to say, oh, you know, I feel so sick and I have such a pain in my back. The more you talk about that pain in the back, the worse it's going to get, you know? So I like my philosophy is like, focus on the things that you want to grow. So if you want to grow your anxiety and your bad stuff and your back pain, keep talking about it, you know. So I'm kind of like, I'm little parted like, if you have some issues you need help with from a professional, I'm fine with it, but you know, it shouldn't be to the point where you can't really have any resilience yourself. Like you said, you know, you learn to fight, you learn to solve your own problems, you know. Like, it's, we can't always run to somebody else like, here, can you fix this, can you fix that, you know. You also got to have some accountability yourself and say, you know what, I'm gonna go all in and fix this, whatever is going on.
When I was 13 years old, I got into it with a neighbor kid, and his stepfather was a Vietnam vet who just came back from Vietnam. And he put the two of us in the front yard. It was a fenced in front yard, and he made us fight. And I guess he taught the kid a karate move, and the kid like swept my feet and knocked me on my butt. And I didn't know how to fight. I had no, I had done karate when I was young, but I really didn't know how to fight. But I got this kid in a headlock and I just choked him till he was screaming. And then they finally pulled me off of him. And the stepfather goes, I like you. Let's go smoke a joint.
How
So we go to the backyard and like we're smoking a
old
joint.
were you? How old were
I was
you?
13. And You know, looking back on it, I'm so glad he made me do that, because
Smoke the joint or fight the kid?
fight the kid, because I had to learn to defend myself. And we after that we had it out, and then we were friends, and it was over.
Right.
I remember I was running a marketing company. I had two managers. I'm sorry, assistant managers. They were both college kids. And one of them was supposedly a high school wrestler, and the other kid was this Asian kid. And I'm running a training seminar with about 200 people in it. And this one of my assistant managers interrupts my training seminar, and he's got like tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Matt and I just got in a fight." And I'm looking at him, I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "We had a fight. He punched me." I'm like, "I'm running a training seminar with 200 people. What do you want me to do?" And he was like, I got in a fight. And I'm thinking, you're a high school wrestler. Like, what the hell are you? He looked like he was going to cry.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I hear you, but go away.
What do you want?
Like, I can't talk to you about this right now. And
Right.
he was so distraught about the whole thing. And I remember just thinking, like, I don't get it. You're a high school wrestler. Like, you had a fight. It's like, so what? I probably had a 1,000 fights at that point, maybe more.
Right.
I don't even remember how many. It's like, okay, you're alive. You're not hurt. You're not going to the hospital.
Right.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just a different mentality, and now it's come down to, even in the training, we hear people in promoting, oh, don't lift free weights, don't chew too hard, deadlifts are bad for you because you might get hurt.
I don't know why they don't look to I mean, I don't think that there's ever going to be somebody as great as Ronnie. I mean, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but there isn't so far. In my book, Ronnie was like the greatest. And look at how he trained. Yeah, he smashed himself. And, I'll say what is good that has evolved is, like, I think athletes are listening more to their body. I'm sure Ronnie, he had something come up like way earlier that, he had aches and pains, and something in his body was saying stop, and he ignored it and kept going. Where I'm like, yeah, you gotta train like him, man, like balls to the walls, but you also gotta listen to your body. Like, when do you need to take that off day? Maybe you need 2 off days. Maybe you need a massage or a chiropractic or something like that. So yeah, it's good in that sense. Like, I think there's maybe more body awareness. Like, we take care of something coming up, like beginning injuries, because it can really, like, we want that longevity in the sport. And if you just like ignore all the red flags, you're going to hurt yourself. So that aspect I like, but with the training, like, I simply don't understand this RIR, rest and reserve. Like, I mean, I've really like investigated it, like really like looked into like what's the whole idea with it. And basically, the way I would put it, like, I just made some training plans for some clients. And I was like saying, because it's like a modern term now, rest and reserve. And they were also talking about it. And I said, listen, I don't want any rest in reserve, but basically what it is about is like, you don't want to break the form. So they're saying, oh, you need 1 or 2 rest in reserve because you don't want to break the form and and just train recklessly, like right with a bad form or something. So the way I translated into the training program was like I had them go to failure on every set, but I explained in an explicit note how I wanted that failure to happen. Like I don't want people to say, okay, I can do like, 8 straight reps and then I'm going to go to this one or pulling with the back or, like, no, as soon as you break form, that's your failure. Like when you start, like, you can't lift with your bicep anymore, so you got to have help for your shoulder. Then you reach the failure. There's no need for more reps. But this, like, reps in reserve, I think it can be misunderstood. Like, oh, you have to start thinking like, how many do I have left in the tank? Like, I don't know, like if I could gauge, like say, okay, now I have like 2 left, or could also be 3 left, could be 4 if I really pushed myself. But that thing, like, go to failure, man. Like, but just keep the form. But I mean, I'm not a fan of this rest and reserve. Like,
Well, there's
to
a
me,
few
it sounds like an excuse to do less.
there's a few things here. First of all, yeah, of course, train smart, try to use proper form and technique. But we went from, lift heavy and train it hard as you can to don't train hard at all because God forbid you might get hurt. I mean, honestly, when I was coming up and I was bouncing in nightclubs, I wasn't worried about getting hurt lifting weights. I was like having to bounce in nightclubs, fighting people, physically fighting. Um, the thought of getting hurt lifting weights was, yeah, sure, it could happen, but it wasn't like so much on my mind. Now it's like, oh, I don't want to lift too heavy because I might get injured. And it's like,
but also with the clip we just heard of Chris Aceto, right, where it's like he's like, well, it's like you're on low carbs, and whether you're going to go to the gym now and give it your all, and you're going to bust your knees or whatever, it's like whatever, it is what it is, like, I mean, I've always had that mentality. Like, I didn't care what I had to do to be the best. If my coach has said, like, cut off like 4 inches of the grass, like 4 ounces each meal, I would have done that. I don't care. Like, it's like whatever makes me the best. Like, you push on your diet, you push on your training. That's the only way that I know. I'm like, why would I think about getting injured? Like, again, the energy, I don't even want to put that energy out. Like, I train as hard as I can and with good form, and that's all I need to do. Like,
well,
for me, it's simple. Like, I don't know, like, why. I mean, if you want to go somewhere, you need to put the work in.
It's simply this: if you're trying to sell a training program, and that most people are just a little soft, and they don't want to go to failure, they don't want to go all out, they don't want to because it's painful. So if you're trying to sell a training program and you want to sell it, and you say, well, you can get, and you list some scientific bull crap, which it is bull crap as far as I'm concerned, and say, you don't really have to train very hard. You can just like have 3 or 4 reps in reserve and you're still going to make the same progress. What do you think don't you think people are going to want to buy that?
Versus most people, I mean, that's why was TV Shop so popular? You could get some kind of like stomach device with some vibration, and you would lose all your stomach fat and people would buy it. Like, people, they don't really want to put in the work. The most people.
Or even like what we were talking about the other day about the GLPs, rather than just people staying on a diet, they got to take a trizepatide or a Ozempic or something like this just to not eat junk. We didn't have that. We just didn't eat junk.
Nope.
It was just simple as that. Just don't eat the junk.
Yep.
But now, you know,
I mean,
everybody
there's also a bad trend. I think that it's like people they don't work harder. They just take more drugs. You know, now it's like you hear people like, oh, they're on this peptide and that peptide and this peptide and this peptide and then this gear and that gear and that gear. And I'm like, it's not necessary, you know, like
well,
what do you
there's a
need
di-
like to be on 6 different peptides for and then
there's a different
listen.
mentality. Like I actually like some of the peptides, like the BPC, TB500,
I
and
like those two a lot. Yeah.
there's a new one, KPV, I think it's called. I just started using that because it's supposed to help your digestion, your gut lining, and I have Crohn's, so I'm thinking it might help, you know, with my digestion.
Right.
So, but there's a mentality of drugs. It's like, okay, I'm going to use this to get better, to be able to work harder, to push myself to the next level. Or the other mentality is instead of working hard, I'm going to take these things. And that's where the disconnect has come. It's like when we had steroids back in the day, it's like if I take these steroids, I'll train even harder. I'll diet even harder because I'll be able to even be even better.
Your recovery is faster, so you can train harder. You don't need as many rest days. I mean, that was the mentality. That's what I meant with taking a lot of peptides and drugs and this and that. It wasn't like to say peptide is not good. I'm using peptides myself, but it's just like the focal point is like what you all are on, you know, instead of like the focal point being on your training and your diet and grinding. You know, everything else is just
I've literally heard
grind harder.
Some of these coaches. Oh, we just lost Helle. Oh, there she is. I've heard some of these coaches literally say that the training doesn't matter. You can just take drugs. And then we're talking top people that are on the internet that are like, quote, big time coaches. And
maybe they're quote big time coaches. I mean, that's definitely some bull crap to say.
They claim that to be big time coaches. And my thinking is, okay, without the training, nothing else matters. Because if you don't have the hard training, there's nothing to recover from.
Right.
The hard training
obviously
is the number one thing. If your nutrition is great, but you're not training, then what are you feeding? You're not feeding anything. Even if you're not training hard and you take these drugs, you're not recovering from anything.
Right.
It's everything else is secondary. The training is first. And then the second part is the nutrition.
Yeah.
And yet if your nutrition is not on point, then you can't recover from the training. So that's not going to work. And then the drugs is like the icing on the cake. It's not the cake. But now people
you get like your protein synthesis will be higher when you're on drugs. You can store more protein. You can thereby also grow more. But if you don't get protein enough, like what would you want to be able to assimilate more? Like for what? Everything bites its tail, you know, like, I mean, the drugs have a purpose, but without the other two, it's just.
But if you don't stimulate the growth from the training in the first place, everything else doesn't do anything. The training is the number one factor.
Yep.
In making progress. Because if you don't have that, the rest of it doesn't work.
Nope.
And I know when I started, it was like it was all about the training, you know, and the nutrition and like, we had some drugs, but it was like, okay, I can use. We didn't know that much about the drugs. We didn't have very much technology, but it's like, you know, if I use this, I'll be able to work even harder, so I can train harder and recuperate a little bit better. But still, the emphasis was on the training.
True.
And now it's not, it's just simply, I literally think people have just gotten lazier. Life has gotten easier, you know, and it's not everywhere. I think we see that more in Western civilization. Like I was looking at the whole, the Iran conflict. These people don't have water. They don't
Right.
have food, but they have great
Yeah.
bodybuilders coming out of that country.
Right.
I mean, they're in poverty, but they still have great bodybuilders coming out of that country.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally don't have food and water. And here we have everything, at our disposal.
Well, then we can start talking about like what creates mental toughness, right?
Adversity.
Adversity.
Adversity
Exactly.
creates mental toughness. If you don't have adversity in your life, you're never going to, you don't learn to overcome things. And people that, just go through life and they have it too easy, they don't become mentally tough because they don't have to overcome any adversity.
They don't have to fight for nothing. Like fighting for something, fighting for whether it's survival, it's putting food on the table, it's like to survive, like being bullied or, growing up with fights or disruptions in the home or whatever type of thing you have to overcome. It only makes you stronger. That's challenge is good. I always say like bad things that happen to you, see it positive, like see it as like a learning curve. Like if you only have like cake every day, you won't get that toughness. You won't get that. You don't know your own strength because before you are put in a challenging position. It's healthy. I mean, people shouldn't be so scared of taking risks and being challenged.
I'll tell you the interesting observation I've made. So my gym is situated, we have a big naval base pretty close to us. And so I have a good amount of people that come in that are military kids or just military people. And I can tell you the mentality of the military kids that come to train versus the regular kids that come from the neighborhood, it's so different.
Right.
It's just so different. It's like night and day.
I'm
These
sure.
military kids come in, they're focused, they want to work hard, they have goals. And then the other kids come in and they don't have goals, they're kind of clueless, and they don't know what they want to do, and they don't want to work hard. And
right.
I don't know if it's those kind of people went into the military or if the military made them that way. But we're talking about kids the same age in the early 20s. And there's such a huge...
they're the kids that are going to go the furthest in life.
No, I know
with
that.
anything, because it's not just like with bodybuilding. It's like I'm so grateful that, well, first of all, my dad instilled discipline in me that when I was a kid, but also bodybuilding taught me a lot of discipline. Like all the diets, all the relentless working, all the years where I didn't know if I was going to amount to nothing. It's like, people, they see you when you're on the top, when you stand on the Olympia stage. But I had many years in the background where nobody knew me. I had no opportunities. I just had a dream and I just grinded, when I came to the States and wanted to like make something out of myself, like try to be a good pro. It was like 2012. I didn't have nothing,
Right.
I just took it as a chance because all this competitions were in the States and I felt like I would maybe like have better opportunities there. There was no pro shows in Denmark and you couldn't really get any sponsorships. There was not really money there. so I was like, okay, let me go. But, I went around, I didn't have a visa. I went around and knocked on doors and got a job at a supplement store for $10 an hour under the table. Like you get that kind of strength when you just kind of like, you don't need to have everything handed to you. It's better if you don't, that you just like, you learn to survive, you learn to handle yourself. And I mean, you need that. Like the last 4 years, I've been traveling on my own around the world. I just live wherever I go, and every place I have to learn a new language. I have to figure out how everything works. Right now I'm in Africa alone as a woman, like many people would be scared, but I'm like, I think a lot of it I can contribute with bodybuilding, that I'm just like, if you can go through that many years of like grind and pain and sacrifice, which it is. I mean, it's also very, very gratifying. Whenever something is like super hard to achieve, you are super proud of yourself after. I've had shows I did not win, but I knew I did everything impeccable. I knew I followed the plan. I worked hard. I had improvements, and I was just as proud of myself as if I would have won the show. And when you have that kind of strength, you can translate it to anything, like business, opening your own company, like traveling the world alone, like whatever it is, you're just not afraid.
So one thing that occurred to me, when I started, first of all, I had my father as a role model, who was, like I said, he was kind of a hardcore military guy, and he was a professional handball player. But when I started training in the gym, I was training with like hardcore bodybuilders right from the get-go. Like the first bodybuilder I saw was Bertil Fox in training in the gym. And, I'd seen Tom Platt's guest pose a week before that. And then in my gym, there was Lee Haney, Rich Gasperi was there getting ready for competitions. Matt Mendenhall was there. I was just surrounded by these bodybuilders. And I will say this, they were not nice. And let me tell you what I meant by that. If I wanted to train with them, I knew I had better keep up, because they did not give two craps about me. Like if I wanted to train with them, there was no like wimping out. And I was able to train with them because I wasn't as big and as strong as them because I was a lot younger, but I would train my ass off. And I was like, I might not be able to lift as much as these guys, but I'm gonna keep up. I'm definitely gonna keep up, because I knew that, they were, if I didn't, they were just gonna be like, get out of here. Right. And I think it's important that people have some kind of role models. And I think that's missing. You have I see a lot of kids have, especially males, they have like just a mother and no father around.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a role model there.
Right.
And, I
think that's very important to have both parents, whether it's the real parent or like a stepfather, stepmother. It's important to have.
And, so what can somebody do if let's say they don't have a father figure, or they don't have a good role model? What could somebody do? They could get a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then, you got to pick the type of coach you want. And unfortunately, like I'm probably not a good coach. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm a good coach, but I'm not the coach that most people would want, because I'm the person that's going to be brutally honest and tell you, the way it is. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to tell you things to make you feel good. I'm going to tell you, you need to do this better, that better, and that better. I'm not saying I'm not never give my people props. I do. If they're kicking ass, I'm going to say, yeah, good job.
Right.
But I'm not going to blow smoke up their ass and tell them they're doing great when they're sucking.
I don't think that's the definition of a good coach, to be honest. I think the definition, I mean, I'm also like super honest with my clients. I've had people that I've said to 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, you're not doing this show. You're not
Right.
ready. Like, and they would be upset, obviously, but it is what it is, like I don't want them to have a bad experience. And I don't want that to reflect on me either. Like, there's a number of reasons why people don't get in shape. I'm not going to get into that, but sometimes things just doesn't pan out, and you got to be the coach to tell you, hey, it ain't happening. I know you planned for everything. I know you maybe even booked the ticket, but is not happening.
Right. Well, I know a coach in my area who this guy, he's never done well in a competition. He doesn't look like he has no physique. But he coaches a lot of local competitors, mostly bikini and like men's physique. And he just takes people's money and puts them on stage in any kind of a way. And
I don't think that's right.
I've
like
seen his protocols. He puts people on way too much drugs, stupid diets that don't make sense. And his competitors, they basically look emaciated because he doesn't really know what he's doing.
Right.
But, he'll take anybody and put them on stage. I have people come to me say, I want to compete. I'm like, okay, you need to train for like 3 to 5 years to get in some kind of a physique. And then we could talk about maybe competing. But like you right now, the way you are, you're not going to be competing anytime soon. You're at like 30% body fat. Your lean body mass is like almost nothing. And you think you want to compete. And I'm not talking about a bikini competitor. I'm talking like,
but you know what, that's honest. And it's like there will be people, they will go to the next coach that tells me what they want to hear, but that's on them. I'm like, a coach need to say straight out the back how things are. They're going to you because they think you are the professional. So I think it's really sad when coaches, they just think about their own wallet and they just want to get clients just to make money, and they'll say whatever. It's just
look,
not
if I'm
fair
going
to
to
the
put
client.
somebody on stage, they better have a fighting chance of winning, because we're not going through this just to
And
do
it's
it.
also your name, I mean,
Yes.
It's also your name as a coach. I mean, I care about it. I'm like, I want to have the best possibly athletes. Like, I'm ambitious like that. I'm like, I was ambitious when I was an athlete competing myself, and I'm ambitious as a coach. Like, I want my people to win. I want them to, it's like, I just, when you have that champion mentality, you have it no matter what. Like, if it's yourself or somebody else, it's like,
yeah, I'm
right?
not, I literally could care less about the money. As far like, yeah, I need to get paid just because I'm putting in time, but I
Right.
don't do it for the money. I have so many people come to me for training, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to train you. And I'm not talking about competitors. I'm talking about like regular people in the gym. It's like, no, I already see what I'm getting into. You're not going to eat right. You're not going to train hard, and I'm just going to get frustrated because I don't have the patience for it.
Yeah. Then it's better to be honest, like, if you don't like doing it, then don't do it.
If I had a lady she came into the gym, she had never lifted weights in her life. She was signing up with a front desk person. I heard her talking about she had a bad back. She had all these medical. She just had a tummy. What is it? They tie their stomach so
Tummy?
she can't eat.
Oh, the gastric bypass.
Yeah, gastric bypass thing. She had all this stuff going on, and it was her first day signing up. And I said, "Come here." And I talked to her, and she told me about like all the medical issues she had. And I don't know why, but for some reason, I just felt like bad for her, and I felt like I could help her. So I took her on as a training client, and she wasn't even looking for that. But I said, "You know what? I think I can help you." And she, she had a spinal condition, so she couldn't load her spine. So I had her do belt squats, and she literally could not get out of she could not get out of the seat of her car without using her upper body to help, because she was that weak in her legs.
Wow.
And we literally started out with a belt squat with no weight and going like 4 inches down. And in just a few months, I got her to where she was doing the belt squat with like 60 pounds for sets of 10 reps. And it's been 2 years, and she's completely changed. She's off all of her medications.
Wow.
She's doing her own
That's
training.
so gratifying.
But there was something I saw in her.
You changed her life.
No, she really did. She thanks me all the time. And now she's training herself because I've taught her everything, and she doesn't need me to stand there and do it.
Right.
But I saw something in her that I was like, this lady, I think she needs help, and she's serious. I think she's not messing around.
Mm-hmm.
And she did it. And I don't care that she's not a competitor, but she was not playing around. She worked hard right from the get-go, and she made amazing progress. And that I can get into. I can't do I had Joe Anturi is the head of Pro PTA, the Professional Trainers Association.
Mm-hmm.
He set me up with a training client, this woman. Her husband owns the Celtics basketball team. They wanted me to train her at her house, in her garage, 3 days a week. I was getting paid $5,000 a month to train her 3 days a week. I had to go to her house and train her. In her garage, she had nothing but a bench and some light dumbbells and some bands. She was about 350 pounds and about 5'1".
Wow.
Obese. The first day I met her, I asked her if she wanted me to do her nutrition. She didn't want to hear about it. So I did train her, and we were at like the 7-pound dumbbells doing just whatever exercises. And I said to her after a few weeks, I'm like, "Do you want to try the 8-pound dumbbells or the 9-pound dumbbells?" No. She just wants to do the 7-pound dumbbells.
Right.
And I tried to put up with it, and I'm just like, okay. And finally, after like a couple of months, I'm like, I can't do this.
There was just no progression.
She went on a cruise, and she came back, and she was bragging to me how she got drunk every day and she just ate all this shit. And I'm just thinking, like, what is the point of this training? You don't even care. I don't think she wanted to do it. I think her husband was just paying. He wanted her to do it. And
I mean, some of us, we just need a goal, like whether you're an athlete
she did not want to. She did not care. She did not care about making progress. She did not care about losing weight. She didn't care. She just didn't care.
But that's what I mean. You had a goal, but she didn't have a goal.
Yeah, and even for the amount of money they were paying me, after a couple of months, I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. You got to find someone else. I just feel like I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting my time. I'm taking your money for nothing. I'm just getting paid, but you're not ever going to make any progress.
No,
I can't do it.
I mean, mentality is so important. Like, I'll say, like, the mentality is number one, not the training. First, the mentality. If you have the mentality, you will do the training, you will do the diet, and then comes all the other stuff.
Right.
But if you don't have the mentality, and you don't have to be a competitor, I mean, I've seen some amazing transformations on Instagram of people that really lost seriously weight and had to have like 20, 30 pounds of skin removed, like where you're just like, wow, that's crazy. 600 pounds and you really got down to that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, some people have what it takes.
Well, I think it's just motivation. Some people, if they're motivated to do something and they want to get there, whatever the goal is, they'll do it. But you got to have the motivation. The motivation
But
has
it's not just motivation, because I feel like you can be motivated one moment and not motivated another moment. I mean, like,
well, I don't mean motivated like excited for the moment, but you got to have some kind of goal.
yeah, exactly. You gotta have a goal, and you gotta be relentless enough to stick to it. You have to have the willpower. Like, you really, really, really want this. And that doesn't matter if you're gonna lose 400 pounds, 100 pounds, or get to a show. Like, you really, 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 if you really want this, you can take even like starting a business. If you're half-assed about it, maybe you're
Right.
gonna go broke, right? You have a business. It takes a lot of work also to have a business. You gotta really, really want to have that business. You gotta really, really want that body. And I feel like those people that succeed are those, like, they have a goal and they're relentless about it. They don't stop. Like they just, no matter what, like whether they are motivated to go to the gym today or they want to eat the food, it's not an option. Like, for me and all my competitive years, it wasn't an option to eat anything else that was on my diet plan. It wasn't an option to skip training. It wasn't an option to skip cardio. Like, I had to be really, really sick to make the decision that I said it's counterproductive for me now to go and train. I've even been sick where I said, you know what? I might not feel well, but I can go for a walk. That's not going to hurt me, because it's not an option to just skip and doodle around. And, you have that drive.
Well, like you mentioned, having a business, I will say this. I remember one time being in the gym with some of the trainers that were working for me there and thinking to myself, you have all of this equipment and clients coming in and all of this, and all you got to do is show up and train them. And you have no idea like what goes on behind this, because they really think that they're running the thing.
Right.
But they don't see when I'm up until 3:00 in the morning on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the paperwork and
night after night
inventory.
After night doing stuff.
Uh-huh.
They don't see that, or they don't realize what's going on. They don't realize that, like, because I'm not on the gym floor training clients, but I'm up till 3:00 in the morning, like doing things to keep this thing going.
Yeah.
Because it has to get done.
Paperwork, employees, getting the people paid, advertising, cleaning, like,
yeah, stuff that just needs to get
taxes.
Yeah. They don't see that part. And the same thing I used in bodybuilding, it's like, okay, I got to run my business. If I want it to do well, I know I got to get these things done, because if I don't do them, we're not going to be there. The place.
I think it's also like you just mentioned, like having that foresight, right? Like, are you thinking short term? Are you just thinking like, what's going to satisfy me right now in terms of like this cheat meal, or what's going to satisfy me in terms of like, oh, I just want to chill with a Netflix and not go to training? Like, that you always have that long-sighted plan, right? Like, everything has a consequence. Eating the cheat meal, not doing your taxes, not doing, the payroll for your employees. Like, it's like that there's a consequence with your action. And is that going to amount to like a good consequence or a bad consequence? So I think seeing really far, like, even like, say, if your show is in like 7 months, you look at it. Even if you say my show is like in 2 years, you're still looking at it, right? Or if you say, oh, I want to expand, maybe not now you're going to expand, but you have a plan for buying an extra building or whatever over like a 5-year span. Like, I think that also helps to have that vision, have a
you also
vision.
have to have the discipline to know not to spend money.
Yeah.
The number one thing I see gyms fail is they overextend themselves.
They want to get this new machine and this
It's
stuff.
not,
And
it's, they get it right from the beginning. They set themselves up for failure by getting a place that's too big and too expensive in rent. And they set themselves up, they somehow think that somehow they're going to produce massive amounts of money that's going to pay this massive rent plus all the overhead and utilities and whatnot and whatnot. And that's the number. They're doomed to failure from the get-go. They take out loans, get in debt, and their rent's too high, their utilities are too much, there are too many people on payroll, they have too much going on. And I can tell you there's a gym nearby me. This place is like 50,000 feet. They have a lot of members. I don't think it makes money. I don't think it's ever made money because it's been owned by 6 different corporations so far. It was Gold's Gym, then it was World Gym, then it was Powerhouse, then it was something else. Now it's called Legends. I don't think the thing makes money because
probably not,
because the overhead is too high. And they can't afford to fix the toilets when they break because they just, as many members as they have, they charge $20 gym memberships. And I did the math, and like, if your rent is $50,000 a month and your utilities are $25,000 a month and you're paying staff at another $25,000 a month, that's $100,000 right there. You know how many $20 gym memberships you need to pay for that?
They need to be at least $100 memberships.
I'm just saying, but I don't see how. I've done the math and I'm like, there's no way they're making money.
Right.
There's no way. They have this big thing going on, but there's no way they're making money because the overhead is too high. And that I learned. I learned this. I didn't learn it in gym business. I learned it when I ran a marketing company. When I worked for a marketing company, they trained us in how to find cheap rent. Like, part of my job was I had to set up offices for what we call branch managers, were like temporary offices that were open in the summer. And I had to like go negotiate cheap rents to get cheap office space.
Right.
And like, we knew like we had to stay within a budget because if you didn't, you'd just blow all your money on rent. And, I have like the best equipment of any gym in my county by far. But
I gotta come and train at your gym at some point.
Yeah, but I don't just like randomly buy shit when I don't have money.
Right.
And I don't take out loans. I get loan offers all the time. It's like, no, I'm not borrowing money to get in debt to buy a machine.
Right.
When I have extra money to buy the machine, I'll buy it, but I'm not going to put myself out there like that.
That makes sense.
Now I'm in debt.
Right.
I have people all day long. They contact me. They want to loan me money. It's like, nope. I do not want your high interest loan.
Right.
It's just a
I
bad.
mean, you can also transfer it to bodybuilding. Like if you're just starting out, I think there's this misconception with many that you need not have a job, like bodybuilding is your job. Like you cannot put yourself in debt for like basically a hobby. It's not a hobby anymore when you say you can make money and it's a job and you can sustain yourself. But how
Right.
many people can say that? Like, yeah, you need to have a job, and there's things you can save money on. You maybe like right off the bat when you're starting training, you don't need 10 different peptides and 25 different supplements. Like stick to the basics, get some protein powder and some creatine, and then train hard.
Look, when I was young, I got put in prison, and I had no drugs, no vitamins. I had canned mackerel and canned tuna that I could buy from the commissary, and whatever food I could get that they had. And I made progress eating that. It just literally canned tuna and canned mackerel.
Right,
And
right.
we had ramen noodle soup. We'd make these things called spreads. They were like ramen noodle soup with canned fish, and that was to get the extra calories and protein, that we weren't getting from the crappy food that they were serving.
Right.
But we still made progress because we trained hard. So you can
Yeah,
actually get by on very little.
yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was training in college, I didn't have a lot of money. It was like pasta and tuna most of the time.
Right.
That was how I started. So, I mean, protein is protein,
Yeah, I mean, if you can buy eggs and chicken and tuna fish and rice, and you
Yeah,
can
you're
some
good to
vegetables,
go.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
and right now I don't have a shortage of money. Like I can buy whatever food I want. I'm still eating like chicken and rice and vegetables for most of my meals.
Right.
I'm
I
not
mean,
going to Outback
that's what we
Steakhouse.
like. Right.
I could go there, but I don't need to. I'm still making chicken and rice and tuna because I'm not tuna. I don't like the tuna anymore because I ate too much tuna in my life.
Yeah,
But
I feel the same way. I do
but
like steak though.
yeah, no, I'll eat red meat like a couple times a week. But
Mm,
most of it's chicken and rice and avocado and vegetables. That's probably what I
yeah,
eat most of the time.
yeah.
And I'm fine with that. It digests
Mm,
well and my body functions better on that.
right.
Do I like sushi? Yeah, I like sushi, but am I going to go spend $100 on sushi for lunch? On an occasion I'll go out, but I'm not going to just go
Right.
for lunch just to spend money.
Yeah. No, that's very reasonable.
So people can basically do it. It's just if you want to do it, you can. And
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be smart with your money and buy the things that you
Definitely.
need.
Especially in bodybuilding, you got to be really smart with your money because it's not a lot to be got. I mean,
Yeah.
if you compete as an amateur, you're not winning nothing. Like if you get a sponsorship, you're lucky. Usually, it's like you'll get some free protein powder, some free supplements, or something. And I mean, it's very few pros that I know that actually get a salary from a company. So it's like, yeah,
I
it's
remember
it's a
when I
good
was with
thing to make money, but it's also a good thing to know how to save money.
I know when I was with the marketing company, the managers, we made good money there as managers. And I remember what the president of the company, he asked me if I'm getting like all this like deep tissue massage work and different things. And I'm not against that. I think it's a good idea. But at the time I'm like, no, not really. Um, and he's like, don't bodybuilders do all these different things? I'm like, bodybuilders are broke. Are you kidding me? They don't have any money. And he just looked at me with kind of disdain. He just thought, like, what do you mean you're broke? Well, we weren't broke because we were marketing managers. We were making money, but not from the bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came up, the guys had weeder contracts, and he'd give them barely enough money to like buy some groceries. They were not living high on the hog on the weeder contract for sure.
Right.
If they got a few $100s a month, they were lucky. And we're talking top pros that were competing in Olympia.
Right.
I mean, maybe it was enough for a crappy apartment and some groceries. That's about it.
Right.
But you know, they had to make do with what they had. I remember when Lee Haney and Rich Gasperi moved out to California, because Weeder brought them out. They were both working construction jobs and training for competition, because the Weeder money wasn't enough.
Right.
It wasn't enough to pay for them to. This is when before they were Olympia competitors.
Right.
I think once they got established, then they could do guest posings and other things.
They could make more money on the side.
Yeah, but even Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu, when they moved to the United States, they were working a construction job. They had a construction company. They did it was a cement or something.
Right. Right.
They did.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be smart. Like, I really don't recommend anyone to quitting their job and thinking they can just live off of bodybuilding. It's keep your job, be smart about your money, buy meat and stuff what you need in bulk.
I mean, still to this day, I shop Costco because I get good deals.
Yeah. When I lived in LA, it was also like I was the Costco girl because you can make good savings. I mean, you get the egg whites in the big boxes, and
right.
I would often get even big lumps of meat, and I would cut it out myself because it was just more affordable. I mean, it's possible to save money if you're kind of paying attention.
Right. You do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot. I hope people got something out of this.
Yeah, I think so too. I can also see I'm running low on battery here.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. If you guys have questions, I know we had some questions in the comments, but go ahead and if you want to see us talk about whatever subjects you're interested in, you can reach us both through Instagram. I have a few people right now.
Yeah, that would be great. Give us some topics, something that you guys are interested in. We'll take it up.
Yeah, you can reach us through Instagram, and we'll definitely be on here next week and try to answer more of your questions. I know there were some questions we didn't get to. Let me just see real quick.
This is something we didn't catch.
I know somebody was asking something back there about something about deadlifts necessary for bodybuilding. I don't think deadlifts are necessary for bodybuilding, but I do think it's a productive exercise. And I think it can be, if it's done properly with good form, it can be a productive exercise. And I think it's beneficial. Can you do other exercises? Yes, of course you can. But I think it's one of the most productive exercises for building your spinal erectors, just overall thickness and density in your back. And that's one thing we see that's missing on a lot of today's competitors. They don't have that thickness and density like they did back in the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's because
especially the lower back area really gets nice development from deadlifts.
Yeah. So
I suffered actually some herniated discs early on in my career, and have been doing deadlifts very sparingly, really just trying once in a while to just see if I could do it. But usually it wasn't really good for my spine. So I've been doing rack lifts, or rack pulls,
Mhm.
for all the years. And I think rack pulls is a really great exercise. Like if you have any issue with deadlifts, then rack pulls are really awesome. It's just basically you you elevate the bar to like around knee level. Like I like sort of like lower knee level, and you just lift from there. So you don't have to get it so far down. Like if you get it all the way down, you also have some leg involvement, which is like I've said, I don't really need that. I'll put the rack pulls in on a back day. But that's just a tip. If people have anything with their lower back, it can be a bit of a hard exercise. Then the rack pulls are great.
The number one thing I see on deadlifts is people do them wrong. The form is just
Right.
horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to do deadlifts, you need to be taught how to do it right. And it's not something that you can watch in a YouTube video. You need someone who really knows how to teach you how to deadlift properly.
100% agree. It's a
and-
technical exercise.
Yeah. And most people I see, they're doing a sort of a Romanian deadlift, which is a stiff-legged deadlift with their back, instead of being arched, it's rounded, and their shoulders are rounded, and that's where you're putting strain on your lower back.
Right.
And that's the main thing I see where you can get hurt on a deadlift if you're doing it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you keep your shoulders back, your back straight, you're using proper form, it can be a productive exercise. Unless, of course, like you said, you have a spinal issue, something like that.
Agree.
But is it necessary? No, it's not necessary, but it's definitely can be productive if done properly. So find a good coach. And I would honestly say if you want to learn to do deadlifts, find a power lifter. Don't go to a bodybuilder, because most bodybuilders don't know how to deadlift right. That's just my experience. I've seen most bodybuilders don't do it right.
Right.
Because today's bodybuilders use mostly machines, and they just don't even know how to do it.
Right.
And not any power lifter. You better find someone who really is a good deadlifter. But it can be productive, like I said, if it's done properly. All right, we covered a lot of stuff. You can reach us both on Instagram. Don't forget, like, subscribe, so we can keep growing this channel. And that's a wrap.
I believe